among underrepresented judges and fellow participants. It mentions helping thousands of MSME grow, but with limited resources. You can't help everyone the same way, so how do you decide who needs what? That's the question that we will answer today. Indonesia is an archipelagic nation and home to more than 66 million MSMEs, contributing over 60% of GDP and employing nearly 97% of workforce. However, our interview with 7 MSME owners found that each business with similar financing funding faces different growth constraints. BRI has played a significant role in empowering Indonesian MSME, financing over 81% of MSME credit and supporting more than 5,000 brilliant villages. However, even with the comprehensive ecosystem, raised the questions of first, why is allocating the right interventions becomes increasingly difficult? Second, prioritizing the most impactful dimensions of social value. We conducted 5 phase analysis, and our analysis indicates that the challenge is not the lack of program, but the lack of scalable mechanism to identify MSMEs' diverse needs and match them with the right interventions. As a result, in a country as diverse as Indonesia, one size fits all is no longer sufficient. Next, now let's move to our second strategic questions. Which dimensions of social value should BRI prioritize? At the first glance, the answer may seem simple. Why not prioritizing everything? However, as a public listed bank, BRI must balance commercial performance with the long-term social impact while maintaining the stakeholder confidence. Our 5 phase analysis shows that not every empowerment interventions generate the same level of impact, and each require different level of resources and implementation effort. With limited implementation capacity, treating every intervention equally isn't effective. Therefore, BRI needs a scalable mechanism to prioritize and match interventions based on MSME needs, maximizing social impact from every resource invested. Otherwise, ineffective prioritizations in problem 1 affect the long term by reducing program effectiveness, slow MSME growth, while in problem 2, it can affect resource inefficiencies and ultimately weaken stakeholder confidence. This finding will form the basis of our solutions to help MSME in high class. Next.
After understanding Barry's empowerment ecosystem, ask one simple question. If Barry's loan book keeps on growing, why is its borrowing base keeps on shrinking? At the top of the slide, we can see that the contradiction, which loan grew book 5.3% to 705 trillion rupiah, while the borrower base fell around 4.1% to 34.2 million borrowers. This tells us that the main problem isn't capital. Barry's lending more than ever. Looking at the ecosystem below, almost every program, financing, training, mentoring, digitalization, and also market access depends on one particular person, and that is the mantri. However, each mantri serves around 1,100 borrowers while also handling onboarding, monitoring, and also loan collections. At the same time, only 15.6 million MSMEs are connected through Link UMKM, and fewer than 1,200 reach export markets. So the issue isn't lack of programs, it's limited frontline capacity. That is our first key insight of the bottleneck isn't capital, it's capacity. With that bottleneck being identified, we then looked into the best strategy to solve it. Next, to find the best solution, we first looked beyond BRI. We benchmarked leading Indonesian banks such as Mandiri, outsourced routine collections. BNI combines collection partnerships with Expora ecosystem, and BCA uses dedicated field teams to collect their loans. More importantly, OJK already says that regulations already allows collection to be outsourced, making these approaches practical for BRI. We then combine these insights with our TWS analysis, which produced 4 strategic directions, which is build the pool, defend by graduating, liberate the mantri, and also avoid the do-nothing trap. The key takeaway is simple. BRI doesn't lack capital. BRI doesn't lack technology or people. It lacks better way to allocate those resources. So before introducing SMART, we asked one final question. Is this strategy financially worth it? Next. The answer is yes. To keep our projection realistic, we use conservative assumptions. Today, BRI loses around 1.4 million borrowers each year. We assume that SMART only reduces BICAP by 50% within the first 18 months. Even with this assumption, BRI retains around 700,000 borrowers, protected around 7 trillion rupiah in loans, and preserves around 560 to 700 billion rupiah in annual earnings. Since implementation mainly involves training, system integration, and also success-based partnerships, the benefits outweigh the cost. So SMART isn't just another empowerment program or a random program that Berry makes. It helps Berry to create more value for the ecosystem that it already has. Now I'll hand it over to Alika, who will explain how SMART strategy actually works.
Next, to answer the first question, we propose SMART, or the Strategic MSMEs Allocation and Resource Targeting. When you think of BRI, think SMART. And when you think SMART, think the right support for the right MSMEs at the right time. Instead of giving every MSMEs the same support, SMART allocates resources based on its growth readiness. So in early stage, MSMEs will receive more supply-side support such as financial literacy, bookkeeping, and digital adoptions. As the business become more ready to grow, the support gradually shifts towards market access, including the link UMKM, brilliantpreneur, buyer matching, and also export preparations, because different MSMEs need different support. Next. So how does the SMART works? It works through 5 connected pillars. The first one is segment. We assess every MSME based on the growth readiness, business capability, digital adoptions, market readiness, and growth motivation to identify its biggest constraint. Second, match. Instead of expecting monthly to do everything, SMART connects MSMEs with the right ecosystem partners such as the Rumah BUMN, government agencies, certification bodies, and also link UMKM. The third one is the assess. So the AI will analyze data from the BRI Spot, QRIS, Link UMKM to recommend the best intervention pathway, while the final decisions always remains with the mantri itself. The fourth one is the roadmap. So every MSMEs will follow a structured 9-class journey from financial literacy to digital adoptions, market access, and eventually export readiness. Finally, track. Progress is continuously monitored, so the next intervention will always match the MSME's development. So in short, the AI supports mantri and it will never replace the mantri. Next. Now for the second questions, since BRI has limited implementation capacity, we recommend to prioritizing the depth of transformation. This does not mean ignoring the breadth of inclusions or village resilience. Instead, we see them as one journey, where the breadth of inclusion is the entry point, depth of transformation is the priority, and the village resilience is the long-term outcome. So by focusing intensive support on the MSMEs with the highest growth potential, BRI can use it as limited resources more efficiently and creating a better for the MSMEs itself. Next. To make SMART practical, we recommend a 3-phase implementation. Phase 1 builds the foundation by developing the growth readiness assessment, training mantri, and integrating BRI Spot with Link UMKM. Phase 2 pilots SMART in selected regions while introducing business activations and third-party collection support. Finally, the last phase 3 scales SMART nationwide using the transformation KPIs and stronger ecosystem partnerships. So, throughout every phase, risks are addressed through training, standardized procedures, partner coordinations, and continuous performance reviews. So by scaling step by step, BRI can reduce execution risks while creating sustainable transformation across Indonesia. Finally, we tested whether SMART is financially realistic or not. So in year 1, SMART is built and piloted, so already contributes around 0.3 trillion after tax. In year 2, as SMART expands, its contributions grow to around 0.9 trillion, while the NPL ratio and cost of credit continues to improve. Lastly, by year 3, SMART contributes around 1.6 to 1.7 trillion annually, increasing the net profit by about 3%. So the key message is simple, where SMART not only creates greater social impact, but it also strengthens BRI financial performance over the long term. Next. So these are some of the highlights from our field study where we interviewed some of the MSME's owner and conducted on-site observation to validate the challenge identified in the case and ensure that our recommendations are actually grounded in real business condition. Next. Thank you for your attention. So we hope SMART that can help BRI to deliver the right support to the right MSMEs at the right time.
Thank you.